Dr. Cowie is a specialist public health physician. That is, she's a doctor of the sort you like to have beside you on the plane when things are going wrong, not the academic sort who sort of give you academic advice on your health. So Dr. Cowie works in the public health space, but she does voluntary work with the Doctors for the Environment Australia. And that's an interesting group in that it recognises the link between the environment, its health, and the public's health. And that to me became very pertinent because many of us now here at an age where you might think, well, the environment doesn't affect me much now. But then many of us have grandchildren and they're growing up in an environment that can be very different from this one. So thinking about environment health impacting what public does, I think is very timely. And Genevieve likes working with groups like this. She's passionate about helping people navigate through these issues, particularly relating to climate change and resilience. So please join me and welcome Genevieve.
Okay, thank you very much. And of course, it's a pleasure to be here in this area of Victoria that my husband and I know pretty well. So we hamper down at Point Leo. And we know the Flinders Hotel quite well because we walk there every year from Point Leo by the beach for our reward lunch. And I also would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Bunurong people, and also in the context of what we're going to be talking about today, recognise that they've done an awful lot better at looking after their land, the resources, than we've done to date. So, health and gas in the hive. The upshot, what we're going to be talking about today, is that there are risks from burning carbon inside your houses, and these risks are being increasingly recognised. And we now have much safer, healthier, and more energy-efficient ways of cooking and heating in our houses. We have more choices than we used to have, better choices. First of all, there's a sort of larger underlying issue here about poor indoor air quality more generally, and it's becoming a bigger problem because of our modern weather-sealed tight ceiling in houses for energy efficiency, and effectively the safety of gas heating and cooking or burning any kind of carbon inside your house is not compatible with these modern tightly sealed houses. There are various health concerns when you're burning carbon. You've got the products of combustion. There's also airborne disease. So you would have heard a lot about this, or we all heard a lot about it during the height of the pandemic, as we all give each other infectious diseases with poor indoor air quality. There's also off-gassing of volatile organic compounds. Those are the sorts of things in paints and furniture and sort of novel materials that we have inside our houses. They all give off gases. Obviously, preventing illness is much more effective and cost-efficient than trying to fix it up once the illnesses have developed. And there is technology to improve indoor air quality that's likely to be used more often, and that's more than just the sort of air purifiers that started becoming more prevalent during the pandemic. And notably, exhausts, they should have them in your house. The exhausts to the outside of the house are often ineffective. So first of all, looking at gas specifically. So gas in the homes, the term natural gas, remember that this is a marketing term. It's there to make us all feel warm and fuzzy about the gas that we're burning inside our houses. Mains or reticulated gas is mostly methane, which in itself is a powerful greenhouse gas. The LPG, the get and bottled gas, in Australia, I believe, is just propane, which is also a hydrocarbon, we burn. In overseas, it's more propane mixed with butane, which again, they're just different hydrocarbons. So, with these gases, when you burn carbon inside your house, you get a complex mix of chemicals produced. Carbon dioxide, obviously, major greenhouse gas. There's also what's called NOx, nitrous oxide and nitrogen dioxide. They are pollutants. There's carbon monoxide, which you're getting really dangerous when you're talking about carbon monoxide. It's formaldehyde and other volatile organic compounds. Formaldehyde itself is a known carcinogen. And of course, there's fine particulate matter, which you've probably heard more about in the context of bushfires. Again, those are the very fine particles that get down deep into your lungs. Because of combustion, burning carbon inside your house, these pollutants can reach harmful levels. And of course, there's the risk of fire from burning any sort of carbon inside your house. And another and very important point with all of these issues, that the risks to health and safety are unfairly distributed in our societies. So those that are particularly at risk are those at the extremes of age, very young children and older people, and pregnant women, their babies, and particularly those whose socioeconomic position, they're too poor to be able to have much of a choice in the way they're heating and cooking in their houses. So this is obviously a large social justice issue. Now, exhausts in your house. So those would be flues, range hoods and exhaust fans. Firstly, they might not be present at all, and unflued heaters still exist. They're downright dangerous, and I sincerely hope that none of you are having to use those. Range hoods over your cooking, your gas cooktops, they're often not used because they're noisy, or they don't actually exhaust to the outside of the house. Okay, so they're there to, remove some of the, cooking fumes and fats and that sort of thing, but they don't actually remove the products of combustion from the house. The flues can also become blocked, of course, and that's what happens with a chimney. If you're not, say, you're burning wood, not keeping it properly cleaned every year. These exhausts, the flues, can actually be made ineffective by exhaust fans elsewhere in the house, sucking pollutants back into the house. So that's called negative pressure. I've got a diagram of that a bit later, and that's sort of a product of tightly sealed houses and multiple exhaust fans and things in the house. Gas stoves may leak even when the gas is off, so you can have gas leaking straight into your house.
Get it.
And exhausts don't eliminate the risk from burning carbon in your house, even if you actually use the exhaust and they're functioning correctly, which is a worry. This is the diagram about negative pressure in the house, and this is a little bit complicated, so if you want to think about it a bit more, this is from the Energy Safe Victoria website. Energy Safe Victoria is the regulator for energy safety in Victoria. So essentially, when you're burning anything, it needs air or oxygen for it to burn. If your furnace of whatever sort that you've got, whether it's gas or wood or whatever, if it's getting the air that it needs to burn from inside the room, then there is a risk that it may not function correctly under certain circumstances and will actually blow suck the products of combustion back into the room. And that's where you get really nasty situations developing. It's particularly the open flued heaters, whereas the room sealed heaters, those are the safer ones for indoor air pollution points of view, because they're actually obtaining their air for burning from outside the house. Okay, so with open flued heaters, you need to have a vent open to the outside, even if it's a little bit of a window open or something like that, to be able to draw fresh air into the room, so that then when the burnt parts, the products of combustion, will go the correct direction up the flue. Okay? That's a negative pressure situation when it gets sucked back in. Okay, we're talking about the pollutants themselves. Nitrogen dioxide is probably the best studied of the indoor pollutants. It's a potent respiratory irritant, and because of this, directly causes airway constriction and sensitisation to allergens like dust mite. So it is involved in both the development and exacerbation of asthma. In fact, for gas cooking, it has a similar level of risk on childhood asthma as having a smoker in the household, which is really makes you think. With regard to asthma itself, a child with current asthma who lives in a house with a gas stove, 30% of the risk of them having asthma is because of the stove, okay, which makes you think. And more widely, for the community in general, almost 13% of childhood asthma is attributable to gas stoves. So we do have the opportunity to do something about these figures. Other pollutants, of course, there's PM2.5, the fine particulate matter that you've heard of with bushfires and so on. That also irritates the airways. Remember the irritated eyes, nose, throat that you get when there's a lot of bushfire smoke around. It aggravates asthma also. Now, these particles are really fine, so they don't just get into your airways. From your airways, they can then get into the rest of your body, get into your bloodstream. And that is involved in the development and exacerbation of chronic airways disease in chronic lung disease in adults. So that's what you think of as probably better know as emphysema. It's also very important in heart disease, both the initiation and exacerbation of people who already have heart disease. It is known for causing premature death in people with heart or lung disease. And because it can get right into your bloodstream, it also has effects on the whole body, and that includes diabetes, dementia, thing on your nervous system, and poor pregnancy outcomes. Things like small for dates babies, stillbirths, miscarriages, all those sorts of things. Then there's formaldehyde, which is one of those volatile organic compounds that I was talking about. It's highly toxic, easily inhaled, it irritates the airways, eyes and skin, and is a known carcinogen, so it causes cancer. Now this one for me is probably the most immediately concerning of the various pollutants. So carbon monoxide is an odourless, colourless gas, so you won't know it's there. It's a product of partial combustion so there can be gas, wood, kerosene, diesel, petrol, whatever hydrocarbon you're trying to burn. When it's not burning cleanly, if you get incomplete burning of the fuel, and get carbon monoxide forming. So concerningly, the symptoms of this are very non-specific. So headache, nausea, vomiting, skin flushing, muscle pain, weakness, shortness of breath, dizziness. So it depends on as the levels are going up. Get coordination problems, confusion, chest pain, and at a high enough level, yes, a fairly rapid death, in fact. Now, of course, because of these very vague kind of symptoms of low levels of carbon monoxide poisoning, of course, carbon monoxide poisoning is often not suspected. And that means people can go for long periods of time being poisoned by whatever form of heating they've got in their home without realising what's going on. So look for feeling sick only when you're at home. And another particular sign is if people and pets are sick at the same time. And it's very likely that this is much more common than the actually documented cases, because it's actually quite hard to document because the levels change in the blood very quickly after you're out of the situation. So it's people have to suspect it, have a high index of suspicion. Importantly, any gas appliance can become faulty. Even central heating can spill carbon monoxide. The new open flue gas heaters must meet a new standard so that they will shut down automatically if they spill carbon monoxide for longer than 15 minutes. I think 15 minutes is quite a long time to be breathing in high levels of carbon monoxide, and if it's very high, in fact, that would be 15 minutes would be way too long. This is where the issue of negative room pressure comes up again. So with the draft proofing of the houses, you're more likely to be, tightly sealed and end up sucking the products of combustion back into your house and into the air that you breathe. It's really important to service gas appliances and wood heaters, especially gas heaters. There's gas cookers, obviously, but gas heating in particular. It needs to be serviced at least every two years. That's the current recommendation. And the servicing needs to include testing for carbon monoxide spillage. So the tradesman actually, the licensed gas fitter actually needs a special meter for that, and it has to be properly calibrated. And of course, those who can't afford it are more likely to have older, more dangerous heaters and are less likely to have those heaters serviced. So cost is an issue. Emergency treatment for carbon monoxide poisoning, if you suspect that that's what's happening. Firstly, open the doors and windows, turn off the gas appliance, evacuate the house, and seek medical assistance. And it'll depend on how sick people are as to how urgent that is. And of course, don't use the appliance again before it's serviced or replaced. A slightly larger issue, of course, if you're burning carbon inside your house, once you've managed to get the pollutants outside the house, that is going to reduce local air quality for yourself and for your neighbours. So you're polluting the air, basically. And this is going to be worsened by local weather conditions, particularly temperature inversions or the topography of the land. So if you're living in a valley, often the pollutants all get trapped in the valley. Still air, as happens with a temperature inversion, it's not being blown away and diluted. And some areas, of course, are quite famous for that. Launceston, Tasmania is famous for that, and we've got a high proportion of people using wood heaters, and the smoke just stays in the valley and causes a lot of health trouble for the people there. An even wider issue, of course, is that in fact all of these things, even if you've managed to make your heater burn fairly cleanly, you're still going to be producing carbon monoxide. And of course, mains gas is methane, which is a powerful greenhouse gas. Climate change is a health issue. A lot of people haven't thought about it in that particular way. It affects everything that we need, the most basic determinants for life for us: food and water, safety and security, air quality, and particularly for those with respiratory and systemic illnesses that goes through the rest of their body. Infectious diseases, you've probably heard about mosquito-borne illnesses becoming more common, and of course there's gastroenteritis. Heat-related illness is becoming a much bigger issue, and we do have significant amounts of that in Australia, and you've probably heard the figure that the number of people that died because of the heat wave around the Black Saturday events was a great deal larger than the number of people that actually died in the fires. And that's related, a lot of that, to cardiovascular, so heart disease, essentially. Exacerbations of pre-existing illness, so that's particularly heart disease for climate change. Mental ill health and climate change. So here we're not just talking about the grief that comes with seeing the destruction of the natural world that is going on around us. Here we're talking about people having their homes and their livelihoods impacted by extreme weather events. People who've had their houses flooded, lost their houses and businesses, their farms, it goes on and on. And of course there's the biodiversity impacts, and this is going to affect our qualities of life, the food that we grow, the air that we breathe, the quality of our water, and of course mental health and so on, just from seeing the destruction that we're inflicting on our resources. And of course there's also vital infrastructure disruption, the sort of things that happen during extreme weather events. Of course the infrastructure disruption can affect health facilities themselves, as well as all the other things that we need, like power and water and sewerage pumping, all of those kind of things will have an effect on our health, and many, many more. That goes on. So getting back to using gas specifically in your home, interim safety measures until you can move to a safer and more efficient electric heating. First of all, improve the ventilation in your house. Make sure you're using the range wood that is ducted to the outside. Open kitchen window if you don't have another form of ventilation when you're cooking. Air the house when the weather permits. Obviously things are a lot more challenging in the middle of winter when it's cold. Don't run the exhaust fans in the bathroom or the kitchen at the same time as an open flued gas or wood heater. And again, that's getting back to that knowing what kind of heating that you have, and you can find out. Ring the manufacturer if you can't figure it out from looking at your own heater. Use a plug-in induction stove. You can buy those quite cheaply now, between $50 to $100, and that is an easy way of avoiding using gas cooking for most things. Safety alerts. Okay, so there's a list. If you go to the Energy Safe Victoria website, you can see a list of heaters for which, gas heaters for which there are safety alerts out on. There are some old ones that were very widely sold that are notorious. They've been on the safety alert list for some time, but unless you've looked or listened to the publicity, you might not realise it. So check the Energy Safe Victoria website. Get your gas heating serviced at least every 2 years by a licensed Type A gas fitter, including testing for carbon monoxide leakage. So that's with the proper carbon monoxide meter. Again, from the Energy Safe Victoria website, you can get to the Victorian Building Authority website, where they have the list of appropriately licensed gas fitters. Look for changes in the operation of your appliance. So if your heater is not, if the colour of the flame is not the good blue, so changes in the flame colour or popping sounds, there could be a problem with your gas heater, so it's time to get it serviced. Sleep safely. Don't leave gas heating on at night or for extended periods of time, okay? You may never wake up if you do that. Myself, one of the gas heaters in a previous rental property that I was in was, in fact, spilling carbon monoxide. But because I don't like sleeping in a hot room, I've never had it on at night time. We were lucky. Carbon monoxide alarms. You can get carbon monoxide alarms. There is not an Australian standard at this stage for carbon monoxide alarms, so you have to look for ones within the US or the European Union standards. Make sure you install it correctly, and remember that it can only ever be a backup measure, okay? It can't eliminate the risk itself of the gas or wood heating in your place. Outdoor barbecues and heaters, never bring them inside to operate them, okay? In fact, they should be stored outside too. They have no flues, they're just spilling their products of combustion straight into the room. And a week or so ago, a family in Sydney was very lucky to escape with their lives after they bought an outdoor barbecue inside their house overnight. So for further information, the Better Health Channel, that's the Victorian Government health information source, that's got information on gas heating and safety issues. Every year, the Victorian Department of Health puts out a health advisory on carbon monoxide poisoning and heating. The Energy Safe Victoria website is also very much worth looking at. The Victorian Building Authority website has the list of gas fitters licensed for gas appliance servicing, and the Doctors for the Environment website has information on asthma and indoor gas appliances and plenty of other things, and more particularly climate health. More broadly, we do also have information on carbon monoxide, but that fact sheet's just being updated at the moment. And that is it from me.
I just wanted a couple of things. One is to find that we have bottled gas here. Things is, how many of you have gas in your home still? No, I think that's well over half. So, because one of the campaigns you try to do is get people to move away from gas and electrify things, as you can see through the next speakers. One thing I thought, because we're going to have a Q&A after Tim has spoken, but I know how people forget the first speaker, so I thought if there's any questions, a couple of questions burning that you'd like to ask Genevieve now, then we'll take those. There is a microphone roving out there with Giselle.
Thank you for a very informative overview of gas heating and cooking in our homes. We have hydronic heating. Is that something that we need to check in terms of the gas inside the home, or is the combustion all outside where it's heating the water?
Or you're getting outside of my area of expertise there, but in general, I would say any gas appliance needs to be serviced regularly, okay? So I think particularly, say, with central heating, okay, which you think the furnace is outside the house normally these days, but if it's not functioning correctly, it can be piping gas into your house. So making sure it is functioning the way it's supposed to function, and I would think that any gas furnace needs to be serviced regularly, at least to make sure it's burning cleanly, you know, so that you're not actually, so you're using it efficiently for a start, and, you know, making sure it's not leaking or getting sucked in somehow into the house somehow, which can add.
Any other questions? Right then. Oh, there is one.
So if a young child in my home has asthma, how we switch from a gas cooker to an electric hob? How might I notice, and how quickly might I notice the difference in that?
In the asthma?
In the asthma, yeah.
Well, given that, like, if the child's already got asthma, okay, already developed asthma, can't do much about that, but you should pretty quickly have much less asthma. Of course, it depends what other causes or other exacerbators of asthma there are for that particular child, but you should notice the difference fairly quickly.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you. We'll take more questions later. Thank you.